March 2026, and the Middle East is literally a tinderbox. What was a very fragile peace has completely shattered, and an all-out war has just exploded across the region. So today, we're going to dive in and break down exactly how we got to this point.
So let's set the scene. It's March of 2026, and things aren't just tense. They're catastrophic. A regional conflict has erupted with just staggering speed and ferocity, and believe me, the entire world is feeling the shockwaves. And then, this happens. A headline drops that just changes absolutely everything. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
And when we say the Gulf is on fire, you have to understand that's not just a metaphor. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Dubai to Doha, missile strikes and explosions are the new reality. The entire region is now a battlefield.
And of course, the fallout from this isn't just local. Oh no, it's immediate and it's global. You've got vital shipping lanes, major energy hubs, all of them are under fire, and the financial markets, they're in an absolute tailspin.
Right in the middle of all this chaos, we get this incredibly stark message out of the White House. It's President Donald Trump, and he's speaking directly to Iran's Revolutionary Guard. You know, that powerful military force that's supposed to protect the whole political system. And his ultimatum is crystal clear. He also makes a point to say that America stands with the people of Iran.
So you've got an assassinated leader, a full-blown regional war, a superpower issuing threats. I mean, it really feels like this just exploded out of nowhere, right? But it didn't. So the real question is, how on earth did we get here? Okay, so to really get a grip on what's happening now, we have to rewind a bit. This road to war, it wasn't built overnight. It was paved with one crisis after another, a ton of failed diplomacy, and just constantly mounting tension over the past year.
So, what does this path to conflict actually look like? Well, it really kicks off with a short but pretty brutal war back in June of 2025. After that, you see massive protests bubbling up inside Iran, followed by this last-ditch effort at nuclear talks. And then, February 28th, the day it all just exploded.
All right, so let's talk about that first domino, the 12-day war back in June of 25. Here's what went down. Israel hit Iranian nuclear facilities. Iran, of course, fired back with its own missile attacks. Now, the U.S. did manage to step in and broker a ceasefire, but honestly, the damage was already done. Any trust that was left, it was just shattered. And those all-important nuclear talks between Washington and Tehran, yeah, they completely fell apart.
So you've got all this pressure building up from the outside after that war, right? But inside Iran, things were also getting really explosive. By January 2026, people were taking to the streets in these huge protests, mostly over the terrible economy. Of course, Iran's leadership immediately pointed the finger at the U.S., blaming them for stirring things up. Meanwhile, on the other side, President Trump was openly cheering on the protesters, which just created this really dangerous feedback loop.
And that brings us to February, the last desperate attempt at diplomacy. The talks start up again, but let's be real. The mood is tense. There's a huge U.S. military buildup happening at the exact same time, and President Trump slaps a 15-day deadline on the whole thing. The demands are huge. And then, on February 27th, a mediator comes out and announces a breakthrough. For just a second, it really looked like, wow, maybe they actually pulled this off. Maybe war was averted.
Yeah, that hope lasted for less than 24 hours. February 28th. That's the day this whole thing went from a Cold War to a very, very hot one.
I mean, it's just stunning how fast it happened. That breakthrough in talks, it became completely meaningless. Overnight. The United States and Israel launched this massive coordinated attack on Iran, and they were hitting targets all over the country. Military sites, nuclear facilities, you name it.
And the human cost, it was immediate and it was absolutely horrifying. One of the very first reports to come out was about a strike on an elementary school in the southern city of Manab. 175 people were killed.
You have to remember, this is how the world was finding out about all this, through these fragmented, chaotic, real-time social media posts. You see reports like this one, where the initial death toll was reported as 51, but that number, as we now know, was just going to climb and climb.
Iran did not hesitate. Their response wasn't just fast, it was huge. Within hours, they were launching their own missile strikes. And they weren't just aiming at Israel. They were targeting U.S. military bases all across the Gulf. In what felt like a blink of an eye, this wasn't just a conflict between a few countries.
It was a full-blown regional war.
But those first strikes, as devastating as they were really just the beginning. What came next? Well, it changed the entire game and threw the region into an even deeper, more dangerous crisis.
So March 1st rolls around, and it's just unbelievable claims starts coming out of both Israel and the U.S. They're saying they killed Supreme Leader Khamenei in the airstrikes. Tehran, of course, immediately denies it. They say, no, he's fine, he's going to address the nation soon. And for a few incredibly tense hours, the entire world was just holding its breath, waiting. But that speech, it never happened. The denial just fell apart. And then, on Iranian state TV, came the announcement everyone was dreading. You had a news presenter literally fighting back tears, confirming it for the whole world. The supreme leader was gone.
And this strike was brutally, devastatingly precise. It wasn't just Khamenei they basically decapitated the entire Iranian leadership. We're talking the head of the Revolutionary Guards, the chief of the armed forces, the defense minister, and even some of Khamenei's own family. It just created this enormous power vacuum right at the very top.
And let's just look at the sheer devastation here. This was not some contained conflict. By March 2nd, yeah, you had hundreds killed inside Iran, but people were also dying in Israel, in the UAE, and there were casualties among U.S. troops. There was no front line in this war. Everyone was in the line of fire.
And if you were hoping for any kind of de-escalation, well, that just wasn't happening. The White House actually gave the campaign an official name, Operation Epic Fury. And President Trump came out in a video vowing that the strikes would keep going until all their objectives were met.
And that brings us right back to today, to this incredibly chaotic present. You've got Iran's entire command structure in ruins. You have the U.S. promising to keep up the assault. And the entire Gulf is